Overthinking, our good old friend that so many of us are incredibly familiar with. Let's be honest, overthinking is a giant pain in the ass that just elongates everything and makes everything seem and feel 10,000 times worse. I'm here to let you know, though, that there is a way to interrupt your overthinking so that it doesn't take you down that spiral. Because you, my friend, are more in control of your thoughts than you realize. Sometimes you just need some tools and some methods to know how to interrupt that pattern so that you can actually get to the thing that you really want in the first place. That's why today's Powerback episode is dedicated to giving you a couple of different methods so you know what to do when overthinking rears its ugly head. Because when you know what to do, you can actually shift the entire situation in the moment. And that, my friend, allows you to get on with your bad self and do the things that you're ready to do. Speaking of overthinking, that's actually one of the topics that we cover in the Mindfuckery workshop. If you're not yet familiar with it, we spend 5 days together for about an hour and a half every day, where we peel back the layers to help understand your brain, what's going on, oftentimes discover the root of what's causing you to stop, and learn some very simple ways to shift your mindset in the moment so that you don't go down that damn spiral that stops you from doing all the great things that you're ready to do. Registration is open. So if you go to LauraAura.com, there are still spaces available. You can register and we're going to shift this shit together. The number one question that I get is how this class teaches you how. Today, we're going to dig a little bit deeper, though, into the specific topic of overthinking, which you and I both are so familiar with that at some point it just becomes irritating and exhausting to even think about. I am no stranger to overthinking. I feel like sometimes I have mastered that shit. And I've also figured out a couple of different ways to help get my ass out of that place because it doesn't do any good, right? Nothing good ever comes from overthinking. Most people are not overthinking how amazing things can be or how incredible this next step could be. You're not overthinking that. That's joy, that's alignment, that's excitement. Overthinking is more like digging a hole in your backyard using your bare hands. The more you do it, the semi deeper you get with it and the messier shit gets. So there's something that I've learned is that you have to learn to interrupt the thought because overthinking is a spiral that leads you into inaction and massive worry and fear. Let me know if this feels familiar to you. You get a thought, right? Maybe it's a passing thought, maybe you're an active thought, but something comes to mind. And then it's almost immediately backed with an alternative, with opposing thoughts, with what if type of situations, or other people's potential thoughts. Oh, we love when other people's potential thoughts get involved because that adds a whole new ingredient to the fucking soup. So now you not only have your original thought, but now you've got this concoction of a bunch of other thoughts, some of which aren't even yours. Now you're playing the game. Now you're opposing things. Now you're doing the what if situations. Now you're comparing stuff. Now you're like, everything's getting heightened. And what happens then is your physical body starts to get involved. Your brain is saying, like, hey, there's danger, there's fear, there's worry. So your body's like, shit, I got to get my shit together. I got to react to this. So your emotions start to increase. Your physical body starts to feel like a bag of assholes. Anxiety starts to present itself. You might start to get tense. You might start to kind of like physically shut down or hunch in. And then, if nothing else happens, you know what happens. We fucking shut down. Freeze mode, we do nothing because that seems to be easier. Arg, the fucking overthinking. This is why we have to interrupt it, my friends, because that whole situation does not have to happen, at least not every single time. Look, I'm just as much of a human as you are, so I still end up in those overthinking situations. But the difference now is I don't have nearly as many of them. And when they do present itself, I have some tools that I'm going to share with you today to help prevent all of that spiral bullshit from happening. It might first, though, be helpful to recognize some overthinking examples because we all have our own, right? Everyone has their own season and flavor. But I found a few to be fairly common between a lot of my coaching clients and people inside of my classes. The first one is this overthinking of needing to have the right answer, like making the right decision, like choosing the right thing to do, the right thing to say, making the right choice in a situation. That need for getting it right on the first try, instant spiral. Another one are like bantering over different outcomes of a situation. playing 14 million different scenarios in your head as if they've already happened. And again, what you think your body can feel. Did you know that you can literally trigger yourself with thought alone? You can invoke a physical feeling in your body through a singular thought. And when we're playing around with all of these potential outcomes, your body is going to get involved. Another one is the how, needing to know how things are going to happen. What are the details? I must have the next steps. The what if type of situations again. I can't move forward until I know the how, but I don't know the how. So now I can't move forward. Insert overthinking spiral. And then this like really intense fear around what to do next or having too many options. This can definitely get overthinking pulled to the front of the stage because then that ties back into making the right decision and needing to know what to do next. We could certainly dig into all of those, but for the sake of today, I just wanted to acknowledge some of the most common ones that I see and hear through people to let you know like, hey, this is fairly common. So let's talk about how to actually shift this today. I really want to emphasize and focus on how to stop this shit from happening in the first place, or at least lessen how many times it's happening. So to stop overthinking, you must first recognize it and interrupt it. And when I say interrupt it, I mean we're like literally stopping it from moving forward. Because what's happening is there is a groove deeply embedded into your subconscious mind that it is used to taking. This is the road that your thoughts are used to traveling on. And when we allow it or just it just continues to happen because we're not sure what else to do with it, it knows the path to take because this is how you've handled it in the past. By interrupting it, we're like literally taking it off of the path that it would normally take, which can be somewhat uncomfortable, uncharted territory, something that's unfamiliar. So you're typically going to be met with resistance and maybe even a little bit of overthinking that accompanies it. However, when we interrupt it, we get it off its path, we start to create a new path. And by implementing these interruptions on a regular basis, your brain now starts to know, like, hey, I actually have options and I know that I can choose to do something different instead. So if you try some of these things and you're like, okay, that didn't work, give yourself a chance to try this a couple of times. Give your brain an opportunity to start to create that new groove. So the first thing is to get to know yourself a little bit better. This is a great opportunity for some journaling or writing things down. So the first thing that I want you to really dig into is, what does overthinking sound like to you? What are some of those regular thoughts that you have? When you get into a situation where you need to make an answer, you're thinking about the different outcomes, you're going through those different scenarios, what is happening in your head? Write down those thoughts. This way, you get to recognize what's actually happening in a conscious setting. Because when you start overthinking, you're in a subconscious. Okay. This is not you actively thinking these things. It's all this stored memory, thoughts and emotions, habits and beliefs that are coming to the forefront and being like, excuse me, I have something to say. I need you to hear me right now. So by doing this exercise outside of a situation, you can consciously tap in and say, okay, what do I typically say in this overthinking state? And I'll also say, if you're not really sure, you can do this exercise when you're in an active overthinking as well. This requires a little bit more intention though, because you have to actively recognize when it's happening. Okay. And that's a great thing, by the way, because that's also an interruption. So, what does overthinking sound like to you? What are the words and phrases that you're often saying to yourself? The second piece is to recognize, what does that feel like in your body? Where are you feeling it? What does it feel like? What type of emotion is it invoking within you? Sometimes people will be like, oh, every time I start getting worried and overthinking things, my left elbow starts to get achy. Okay. Now I know that if my left elbow starts to get achy and I'm in my subconscious mind, not really like actively thinking, but I'm just in this rut, I can recognize that my left elbow is achy and be like, oh shit, there it is. I can do something about this. So as you recognize what's happening in your body and where it's happening, sometimes the physical body is enough to like jolt you awake, so to speak, and let you know, like, hey, there's something going on. This is an opportunity for us to do something different. For me personally, when I start overthinking, I get an incredible amount of pressure and tension across my chest. I also get really fidgety. So I'm shifting around in my chair, I'm picking at my fingers, I'm scratching my ears, I'm moving my hair around. Like I just really start to get kind of antsy and fidgety. So when I can recognize that within myself, I can say, okay, my physical body is saying, Laura, hello, upstairs is getting a little bit noisy right now. Can we do something about this? And lastly, I want you to acknowledge, what is overthinking stopping you from doing? Now, I know that there may be a lot of different type of scenarios, but just in general, what is it stopping you from doing? It's stopping you from moving forward, stopping you from having inner peace, it's stopping you from making gutsy decisions, it's stopping you from being with people. Like really tap into what is this cycle stopping me from doing? Sometimes slowing down long enough to even acknowledge this piece of its own is enough to make you want to make a change, to try something new. Because when you're in that cycle of overthinking, you're not thinking about how this is affecting you. You're thinking about how to make things better. You're thinking about 100 different scenarios. You're thinking about all the different ways to get out of this fear zone. So, right now, if you can acknowledge, okay, when I get into that mode, what does that stop me from doing? It really can be an eye opener to be like, wow, I hadn't even stopped to think about this and how this is really affecting my life and or my business. This is an important part of the process. Okay. Those three questions are really, really, really essential for you because my personal examples, my clients' personal examples may be vastly different than what it looks and sounds like for you. But when you get to know it for yourself, then you can see, hear, and feel it a lot easier and faster. And when you can see, hear, and feel it, my friend, then you can begin to interrupt it. So here's my interrupters. Here's a couple of things that I've been using, that I've been teaching, that have been incredibly effective. And might I also say, are incredibly simple. When we're making foundational changes, this shit has got to be simple and something that you can do in the moment. And the first one is so simple, but might seem a little bit silly, but I'm telling you, it fucking works. Is that you get to interrupt it with a sound or a word. When you begin to notice it, okay, that's the first step with everything, is you have to have awareness of it. So when you can hear, see, or feel that overthinking cycles start to happen, I want you to immediately interrupt it with a sound or a word. We'll also slide in there maybe even a physical action. Let's actually add one more in there. Say a word, make a sound, or do a physical action. So, for instance, a physical action might be to clap, to snap, to like pop your body up if you're sitting down. A sound might be or cluck like a chicken or like it doesn't matter. Like that's what I'm saying. It might be silly, but embrace it. Whatever feels right to you gets to be right for you. My son and I are like ridiculous goofballs. So we make a lot of ridiculous sounds in our house. So I'm a big fan of this. So for me to be like, yeah, 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 is not uncommon. Or maybe it feels more comfortable to say a word instead. Maybe you sing a couple of words of your favorite song. Maybe you just yell out no. I want to reinforce that there is no right or wrong way to do this. Whatever feels right for you, whatever works well for you, let it be that. This is not an invitation to overthink your interruptions of overthinking. Sometimes I use a combination of all these things. Something that I found very, very effective is literally to like say nope and I jump up. Because honestly, now that I'm actually thinking about this out loud, I'm having a literal aha moment. I'm rarely overthinking when I'm physically moving. So if I'm up, I'm standing, I'm walking around, I'm not typically overthinking. It's usually when I'm stationary. Random, not in my notes, but a drop in that just came to me that I wanted to share. So if I catch myself in that cycle, I see, hear, or feel it, I'm like, nope. And I pop myself up. And it is enough to like jolt the situation so that I don't start to go down that spiral. This is what I'm talking about, interrupting by getting that overthinking groove in your head to start going down a new path. And when you can start with a word, a noise, an action, this is enough to like jolt the physical body and the mental self to say like, okay, hold on, we're going to do something different this time. This allows you then to do a little bit more introspective work to get a little bit more clear on what to do next. Because now the next interrupter that you can add in is tapping into yourself and getting really clear. And the three questions that you can ask yourself in this situation are, what do I want? what do I need, and what do I need to decide. When you're overthinking, it's really easy to get caught in that web of wanting or needing to do what everyone else thinks you should do or what is expected of you you hear me, you know what that feels like. So if you interrupt it and you actually just stop for a second and tap back in, what do I want in this situation? This helps you to come back into your physical body and to make a conscious decision. Sometimes it's what do I need? Listen, there's nothing I love more than hanging out in my warm house under a blanket, curled up next to my husband, watching TV. And while we aim to do that every single day, before I get to that point, sometimes I really need physical movement. So when I start overthinking the situation of do I put on my pajamas and really like tuck in for the night, or do I put on my shoes and I go outside and take a walk? Laura, what do I need in this situation? I need to walk because I know that it helps me feel better. And I know that the treat when I get back is to do the thing that I really want. It's all mind fuckery, my friend. You're literally just playing games with yourself to get you to the point where you're doing the things that actually resonate the most with you while also helping your body and your mind in the entire situation. I mean, it's so stupid simple that it's incredibly complicated. And the third part of this portion is what do I need to decide? Because that wavering shit, that back and forth, that playing the odds, the what if game, and all this. Okay, what do I need to decide right now? Because nothing will throw fucking lighter fluid on a bonfire quite like indecision. When you decide, it gets to be affirmed. When it's affirmed, you now have clarity on what to do next, or at least which direction to point yourself in. So, what do I want? What do I need? What needs to be decided on right now? And the third one that I've been using, and this is actually relatively new for me, it just came to me one day and I was like, I just started to say it. And I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty helpful. Is again, catching that thought, catching that feeling, catching that like starting to build up. And I immediately ask myself the question, do I want the same or better? Do I want the same or better? Sticking with my walking scenario here, when I'm back and forth and I'm doing this thing, like I know I need to do things for my body, but I don't feel like doing it right now. But is it because I'm pushing it off, or is it because I actually really need to rest? Okay, there it is. It's starting to spiral. I've been interrupting that in my brain by going same or better. And it's enough to make my brain go, oh shit. Meaning, do I want the same? Do I want to continue to feel the same way that I have? I've been on a health journey trying to regain and rebuild my health after a lot of shit over the last decade or two. So, do I want to continue to feel the same way that I have for the last decade or two? Or do I want to start to feel better? Is one walk going to change my life? Probably not. But a series of continuing to walk, a gentle exercise that helps move my body, which helps clear my mind, which helps me get so much healing back into my body. Yeah, that helps me feel better. But in the moment, in that decision pivotal moment when I don't really want to go do the thing that I know that helps me, I can interrupt it and get very clear by saying same or better. So inevitably, I'm like, ah, damn it, better. Put on the damn shoes, go outside, and then I never regret going outside and taking a walk. So try to implement that. It's such a simple phrase, and this can be the noise or word that we talked about earlier. And it can be used for indecision. It can be used for overthinking. It can be used for a lot of different things. Just ask yourself the simple phrase, same or better. And then here's the thing, I want you to really feel like that as if that's one thing. It's not what your brain is going to tell you, it's what your body speaks to you. That's what I mean by hear feel. Listen to that little whisper before your brain starts to get involved, because that is the true answer. That is the clarity. That is the shift. That is where your most aligned path is. And that leads me to my final tip today, which is to take that action. What is one next step you can take? It's usually backed by that little whisper that you hear felt in your body. And that, my friend, is where the monumental change gets to happen. It may not be overnight, it may not be immediate, but when you interrupt the overthinking pattern, you tap in and hear feel what your body really wants and needs. And then you take the action that supports that instead of the overthinking mess. My friend, by doing this enough times, you will absolutely see, hear, and feel change in your life. This is not groundbreaking scientific breakthrough stuff here. This is the simple, quiet shifts that each of us are individually making. But I can promise you that if you start to do this kind of stuff, the simple stuff, let it be easy, my friend. While the change itself may not be easy, the ways in which to change it can be. Overthinking doesn't have to stop you anymore, my friend. You've got some tools now. And I would love to know which one resonated with you, or the next time that you use one of these, send me a message. Seriously, I'm the one that responds to people. I'm on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at that LauraAura. Send me a message and tell me what the scenario was and which method that you used. I'd love to hear how this stuff is helping and guiding you. And if you want to go even deeper, join me in the Mindfuckery workshop. If you enjoyed this type of content today, this is the type of conversation that we're having. These are the simple methods that I'm teaching and showing you. And you get to do it surrounded by like minded women that are in a similar situation as you. It's not that you can't do it alone, it's that you don't have to. Registration is open. Go to LauraAura.com, or you can just scroll on down and click the link in the show notes and grab your seat. Because if you're ready to make a change, let's do it together. If you've got a friend that could benefit from the knowledge that I'm sharing with you here on the Gutsy podcast, I would super duper appreciate if you could forward the link to them so that they could subscribe. And as always, my friend, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.